Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Hey, I'm holding up my camera in a funny angle, but I wanted to do this video because it's very important. We put up a property recently and everybody's asking, why is it so cheap? Well, it's in an area that hasn't really been promoted by us just yet, and we are looking at it very, very closely. The areas down south of us tend to be less expensive than the Scalea area and some of the towns around here because of all the attention that our Riviera di Cedri has been getting. And it got more attention recently with a CNN travel article that featured our clients and friends, Shannon and Felipe from the FIG, and a whole article written up on them in Santa Domenica Talao. So I think that's going to have an effect on property values as well. In any case, down in the areas around Acquapesa, we're seeing Bonafati, the areas down south of Belvedere Maritimo tend to be less expensive, and you can get some crazy values. We've seen several of them in Acquapesa and now Bonafati, and these could be incredible values if you know what you're doing. Now, in answer to the question, why is that property so cheap? It could be several things. Number one, it could be a highly motivated seller. It could be any number of things that make somebody want to sell quickly and basically get in, get the cash and go. But another reason that it might be so cheap is because it's called an act of possession, or uso capione, which basically translate loosely to squatter's rights. Now, what happened was back in the day when a lot of people left Calabria and went to America, they never came back and they just abandoned their properties. And these properties have become a problem in the historic centers. And in fact, a lot of the hill towns in Italy are in danger of dying out because there's not a lot of people coming back to claim their properties. And there are ruins all over the place. There are renovation projects all over the place. And coming over here, purchasing a ruin or a place that needs a little love and doing renovation is very, very good use of money because you get a lot of value for what you spend. In any case, the laws regarding uso capione made it so that somebody could take over one of these abandoned properties. They could improve it. They could use it overtly. They could basically act like they own it. And after 10 years, it becomes them under the uso capione or squatter's rights. Okay. Now, there are some caveats to that. Could a claimant come in and make a claim? Yes, they could. Could it be a little bit more risky? Yes, it is. And that's why it's a little less expensive. Now, let's look at this, though, because in several instances, these uso capione things, you know, if somebody wants to come in and make a claim, let's say you buy a house for 60,000 euros. Let's say the owner took it over and its value in the state that it was in was about 2,000 euros. Let's say they improved it. Let's say they put in a lot of money in renovations and that kind of thing, and now it's worth 60,000 euros. Well, the claimant can't come in and just claim that you owe them either the entire property as it is now or 60,000 euros. They can make a claim for that 2,000 euros. And this is per my conversations with Nick and whatnot. Now, caveat, I'm not an attorney. Always, when you're dealing with something like that or any title issues on any Italian property, definitely contact an attorney and get them involved. So the first question I would ask is, what was the value of the property when it was first taken over? The second question I would ask is, how much did the new owner put into improvements? That's important to note because you will know the total amount of your risk. The other thing I would ask is, how long ago did they take over the property and start using it overtly and improving it and that sort of thing? This is a very important question because if it was 2 years ago, obviously that's a high risk uso capione and wouldn't even really fall under uso capione. But if it was 50 years ago, or even 20 years ago, the risk is a lot less. Now, can some claimant come in and assert a right? Yes, they can, but they can only assert it for what the property was worth before it was improved. And again, if the uso capione was over a longer period of time, they'll have a little bit more of an uphill battle to try to assert their claim. Now, understand that for somebody to assert their claim, they're going to have to hire an attorney, and attorneys can be expensive. So for somebody to hire an attorney over property that's maybe worth 2,000 euros when it was taken over, not super likely. So again, you have various different factors of risk in this particular situation, and you have to weigh them accordingly. Another thing I would ask is, has there been any other deeds that have occurred in between the time the seller took over the property or whoever took over the property as uso capione and the time they're selling it to you. Now, if there's been 2 or 3 deeds that have been done with the notary in between that time, that will also strengthen your position. So there's a lot to this particular situation. Usu capione, I like to think of it as kind of like an auction, in that you could do really well if you really know what you're doing and you have the right team behind you, or you could make a big expensive mistake. So I think that, if you're looking at a property that's very inexpensive, it would make sense to first ask these questions yourself, get the answers to these questions, and then run it by an attorney and see if it's a risk that you can live with. Everything has a risk, even a normal property here, even under the best of circumstances, there's always a risk, but you have to know all of the factors of the risk and what makes it risky and that sort of thing. And you have to decide for yourself whether that's a risk that you're willing to take on. So I hope that helps you guys. I've talked a lot about usu capione, and a lot of it is in my book and also in our course. So don't forget to get and study those, because it's very important that you know what you're doing when you're buying an Italian property. See you soon, guys.